Well, hello, MCC. This is Pastor Brian. I wanted to take a moment just to talk through some changes and some questions some of you have had in regards to um, our overall like missional connections that we have through some of the organizations that I'm involved in. And then also prepare us for our upcoming fireside chat and just kind of provide some information around that. So if you have any questions, you could go ahead and talk about that and come back with me or to the elders, and we'd love to talk to you about it. As we've mentioned multiple times before, as a church, we are shifting. We're changing some things up, especially in regards to our Go initiative. And we read in Scripture, as a matter of fact, as we're in Romans right now, Paul's writing to the church at Rome, and we tend to think like that's one church, but it's actually like a multitude amounts of churches. And then he's also connected with churches in Jerusalem, all through the Mediterranean. And these churches, although they make decisions as far as like how they govern themselves, they are missionally connected a lot through Paul's work, but also together. And we see that as church history progressed, not only through scripture, but outside of scripture, um, the importance of connection missionally to work with like minded churches is essential for the gospel of the kingdom. And one of our values is kingdom collaboration. And so we want to collaborate with other churches to be missional, to have an impact for Jesus. And so I want to talk a little bit about our missional connections at MCC, mainly through a lot of the work that I do. And I want to put that out there. I also want to talk a little bit about like me as a bishop. What does that mean? Because we don't, not all of us come from like a background, or we've had a bad experience with a background, and we hear that it's kind of foreign to us. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then I want to talk about our network, being a network church with Missio Mosaic, and what that means. And then prep us for the fireside chat, talk a little bit more about that, give you some resources of where you could look at some things to kind of to go through and kind of do your own research. And then I also just kind of want to like let you know that if you have any questions, like you could just stop by the church, we could have a conversation, we could do it um, after service. So so it's just kind of a time for us to do that together. So I don't have this like polished thing, so I'm just gonna kind of wing it here. But it's all out there. I'm gonna take it from like a big perspective and then kind of break it down to the fireside chat that we're gonna have on August 4th. So let me go ahead and share this presentation right here. Okay. So I'm going to roll through this presentation, and we're just going to kind of go from there and see how it works. All right. So again, I want to talk a little bit about our missional connections. Um, and obviously, most of these are through my relationships. And as your pastor, by default, the church has a relationship in some way, shape, or form. And just to give us context, we we are an independent church, which means we're not denominationally affiliated. And so this is not a denominational pitch. This is more of a missional networking um, pitch, I guess you could say, to say, well, this is where we're going, this is what we're part of. This is not being part of a denomination, nor am I going to be talking about, does this have any way that we govern our local church? This has no impact on the governance of our local church. We're still congregationally governed. We're always going to be congregationally governed, yeah, because it makes sense for us here in this context. But the one thing about being independent and congregationally governed that we tend to not have are relational connections outside of New England and with New England with like-minded churches and organizations, so that we can mutually help one another to have an impact for the gospel, so that people can know Jesus. And so that's part of my heart and part of why I want to kind of share this. So this is our missional connections, and this is the big picture. All right. that I'm part of. So I'm going to explain this. There's a bunch of bigger groups out there, mission societies, that aren't necessarily denominations, yet they come from a historic background that is missional, and they've kind of formed over time. So some of these organizations, or the organizations that I'm part of, that are I'm in communion with, if you will, or that I'm partnered with, are three main groups. Right, the first one on the top, you see it says Communio Christiana, the Apostolate for the Nations. All right, Communio Christiana is a large communion of churches and missional practitioners all around the world. All right, so they consist of about 2 million people. They're in Africa, Asia, South America, North America. Many of the initiatives they have are to unreached people groups and to the persecuted church, and I'll break that down a little bit more. The Apostolate for the Nations, it sounds kind of like a strange name. Basically, that was formed for as a missional, international missions headquarters here in North America. So that's led by a man named Bill Mickler. He's my bishop, my overseer. And so I've been working with him for a few years. This isn't like hierarchical, it's more conciliar, meaning a lot of these groups have different councils that meet together. So it isn't like, let's say, maybe some of you are familiar with either the Episcopal Church or the Catholic Church, where you have like, the Pope, and then everyone just kind of trickles down. That's not how this works. It's you have representatives that come to a council. So Communio Christiana, the Apostle for the Nations, has a college of bishops that meet. It's an international college of bishops consisting of the bishops with that constituency of 2 million people. And so back in August of 2021, after working with Bishop Bill Mickler, the College of Bishops met and they elected me a missionary bishop, and myself and then another bishop, Bishop Jonathan Smith, in Castle, Florida. And so they elected me as a missionary bishop mainly because of the work that I was doing in New England and some of the international connections that I had. And so I was consecrated in 2021. And so my bigger international group that I'm part of is Communio Christiana, the Apostolate for the Nations. What that led to was me and Bishop Jonathan Smith co-founding Reach North America. And Reach North America is a mission society that has global ties through the Apostolate for the Nations, and has an Abbey network. It has a school for ministry, and it provides support for missionaries around the world. Mainly right now, the missionaries we have are through One Child, which serves orphans in East Africa regions and actually all through the world. And then also we have a mission down in Guatemala that we support down there. And so John and I co-founded this. And if you look at the core documentations, what is called the canons and constitutions, it looks very similar to MCC's values and vision and so on and so forth, mainly because I was one of the co-founders, and obviously I'm not going to change from what I think we should do here and what I believe North America we should do. And so Reach North America was co-founded, and it's mainly serves missionaries and mission organizations and faith communities that might be a little bit different, that are outside of the norm of the normal like church gathering, like a MCC or something like that. The third organization that is a mission society that I have a connection with is Missio Mosaic, and that's really our discussion around the Fireside Chat. Missio Mosaic was founded by Bishop Page Brooks. Page is a colonel in the Army. He's still active duty. He's a chaplain. He was the pastor, or he is the pastor of Canal Street Church in New Orleans. Canal Street Church was very similar to like MCC. Canal Street Church was originally a Baptist church and was an independent church, again, very similar. And so Paige took that and basically did what we want to do with the Go Initiative and formed Missio Mosaic out of it, which resulted in a network of interdenominational churches that are united on mission, that are faithful to the gospel, and have the same missional ethos. And so I met Paige when I was consecrated. He was one of the bishops there that was supporting that. And so me and him became friends. And one of the other things Missio Mosaic serves is the military chaplaincy. So there's a military chaplaincy group. So he's an endorser for the military as well. And so we hit it off right away. And so I work with Missio Mosaic. Out of these three groups, Comunio Christiana, the Apostolate for the Nation, Reach North America, and Missio Mosaic, we have what we call our missional council. And the missional council is formed with the bishops of these organizations. And things that are discussed are things like, how can we partner for mission? How can we support one another? There's accountability there. Hey, are you still abiding by, the scripture and what it means to lead? Are you still falling within the agreed upon missional ethos that we have? And so it isn't hierarchical. It's a voluntary council that we come together, and really the Holy Spirit does some amazing things there. All right. There's a couple other organizations that are kind of on the edges that support us now and then. There's a group called the Continuing Evangelical Episcopal Communion. They have about 2.5 million people, mainly in India. They'll come in and do some missional work with us. They're a little more formal in how they worship. It's a little more higher church. And there's some things that, we just don't feel comfortable necessarily, not because of that, but because of other reasons we may or may not partner with. There's also an organization called the Evangelical Episcopal Communion. A lot of C's and E's in these acronyms. They serve a more urban demographic, and we do partner with them, especially in missions in an urban type setting or in a southern setting. We'll go ahead and we'll partner with them, and they have a lot of wisdom, especially around things that are difficult, like racial reconciliation, things such as that. And so they provide us some really good support on that. And so, yet they do not have representation on the missional council. All right. So that's the big giant picture. Just a little bit. Again, I'm going to go through this fast if you have questions on any of these. But Comunio Christiana, the Apostolate for the Nations, again, they're in about 100 countries with Muslim background believers. There's a group that is called the Basileans that focuses on economic reform, business. It's sort of a monastic group. There's an archdiocese in Brazil of 200 churches. We have an underground church of about 200 churches in India. So a lot of persecuted areas that we serve. So you're not going to find it on a website necessarily. Through Archbishop Schirmacher, he's a German theologian. He's also the chair of the International Society for Human Rights and the International Institute for Religious Freedom. And so he serves a whole bunch of people, speaks at the United Nations. And so he's in our group. We have some underground Christian schools in Albania and Jordan. And then one of my favorite partners is the Mission of Evangelical Episcopal Churches in Africa. That's led by one of my friends, Bishop Leopold. He is from Rwanda, had escaped the genocide. He's in 11 countries with 300 churches, to include Canada, where he really serves the different churches that were dispersed during those genocides and different wars in Africa. So that's Comunio Christiana. Reach North America, this is a snapshot of some of the organizations that we are connected with, some churches, again, different churches, some community churches, some Anglican churches, some non-denominational churches. There's a church group down in Kenya called Holy Trinity Church that has quite a bit of churches that we are connected with. St. Aidan's University, which is a school of ministry that Bishop Jonathan oversees. It's been down there quite a bit. And then One Child, which serves orphans in East Africa and really around the world. Missio Mosaic has, again, they're very similar, interdenominational. You got Baptist churches, you got congregational churches, you have Anglican churches, you have Missio Institute, which is a leadership institute. Bishop Page is associated with Kairos University, which is one of the up and coming seminaries in the United States and actually out through the world. One of the partner churches in our area is Shipyard Church. It's in process right now. That's down on the South Shore. And then we are a network church as Middleton Congregational Church. And so I'll talk more about what that means, and that's really what the Fireside Chat is going to be about. Really, all that means right now as a network church is that we are committed to partnering in mission with Missio Mosaic. So again, Missio Mosaic has all these interdenominational churches, they have nonprofits, and they have military chaplaincy. And so it gives us ways in which we could mutually support one another. And because Missio Mosaic is at a place where we would love to see our church and this region affected the same way that they've been able to missionally affect the New Orleans and the greater New Orleans area. They have resources that could help us as we move forward on our Go initiative. And so I'm going to show you the website for that. They're updating their website. Again, their context is a little more urban, a little more diverse in that way. But Bishop Page will be coming up and be here August 4th for the Fireside Chat so that we could answer some questions. But it's really exciting to be part of a network. And so let me go back. So we go, and as a church, we're part of Missio Mosaic, but then when we're movement that's happening around the world, it's extremely missional. It's not denominational, and it's not hierarchical either, so that we have freedom to do what the Lord has called us to do, yet we're also held accountable, mutually held accountable with other believers that want to see the advancement of the kingdom as well. And I think that really fits us as a church. We're small, we're not a big church, but we could have a huge impact if we partner up, as the first century church did. You know, the Apostle Paul is going to these different countries. They're all different churches. It isn't like they're all the same. They all govern themselves different. But they were united on mission, and the Spirit did something. And so we'll talk a little bit more on the Fireside Chat about what does it mean to be a network church of Missio Mosaic, and really it means whatever we want it to mean. All right, there is a mutual. We are committing, making a commitment in the sense of we are part of Missio Mosaic. We're going to attend. There's like an annual gathering every year where all three of these organizations, Reach North America, Missio Mosaic, Apostles for Nations, come together, and we kind of share stories, testimony. There's trainings. We commit to supporting that. It might be a financial commitment, in the future. Hey, we're willing to fund the mission as a group because we're part of this thing. And we're also willing to host people that are in the area. So if we have things that are happening in the Northeast, we want to be that host because we're a network church, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later, about something we are going to host in the winter, and which I think is super exciting. So that's Missio Mosaic. I'm really excited about that. But I do want to go, like, where do I fit into this? Because some of you guys say, like, you're a bishop. What does that mean? How do you fit into all this? Well, again, I'm a missionary bishop in apostolic succession. I'll explain what that means. But I'm the co-founder of Reach. All right. So Bishop Jonathan does a lot of the heavy lifting. I helped be a founder of that. We steward that and help grow that. And so I provide leadership in that, in the growth of that. I'm a member of the missional council that I showed you between those three groups. I'm licensed as an assisting bishop in Missio Mosaic because we have a relationship with that triangle with those three groups. I help Bishop Page mainly with some leadership development pieces and then reaching out to some of his military members that are going to be chaplains. And I do some things like that. And then with Communio Cristiano or the Apostle for the Nations, um, I'm a liaison to some of the East African bishops. So I text them, and if they have leadership questions about like how to connect with different people, maybe from the United States, I'll give them some advice. They let me know how I could better talk with people in a different context. It's actually really beautiful. I mean, it's why I love being a pastor and being a bishop. It's amazing to be able to do that. And so I'm a liaison for that. And we have a lot of quite a few liaisons around that. Mainly, I'm work with the bishop I mentioned, Bishop Leopold, who has a connection to Rwanda and some other countries, and um, usually mainly through just counsel. So we help each other solve problems. So that's where I fit into it. But I mentioned this thing, apostolic succession. So what is apostolic succession? Well, apostolic succession is this idea that it's really about stewarding the mission. So you had the apostles. So if you look all the way to the left, you see Jesus and you see the apostles. Jesus lays hands on the apostles and commissions them and tells them to go forth, and go to the ends of the earth, be his witnesses to the ends of the earth. And so they take that apostolic mission and they do it. And then we read in church history that they laid hands on someone else to steward the mission, the same mission that Jesus gave them. And then they laid hands on someone else, and they laid hands on someone else. And so, believe it or not, um, this has been kept track of ever since the time of Christ. It's crazy. And so this is, I know it's hard to see, but basically it's a crazy chart that shows you who has served as bishops in this apostolic succession, all the way to me at the end. And it shows you kind of like a family tree, going all the way back to when Christ went and laid hands on the apostles. And so, as a bishop in apostolic succession, it's a matter, I have a calling to steward the mission. So this is a lot of why you've experienced me a certain way, where I have a drive for the mission. It's something inside of me. It's something that the Lord has affirmed by the laying hands of bishops to say, yes, you are one to steward the mission. And it's a heavy burden. And yet it's really cool to know that you have this connection all through history, all the way back to Christ. And so this is what the apostolic succession thing means. And so what that allows me to do is it allows me to really continue, or empowers me to continue the ministry that Jesus has called his apostles to do. And so I thank you for your support as your pastor, and just loving me for who I am in this. And so if you have any more questions, it's kind of a big topic, but I just wanted to let you know this is what it's about. And really, at the end of the day, it's about stewarding the mission that Jesus gave his apostles until Jesus returns. And so they kept track of it, and I just have the privilege to be part of that lineage, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited that I'm a pastor of this church, and we are part of something way bigger than we could have possibly imagined. And so this is a big deal for us. So where do we fall out on this as a church? Where do I fall on it? Where does some of our ministers fall out on it? Well, again, all the way to the side, Missio Mosaic, MCC Network Church, which, because of the relationship, we have connection with. Again, not a denomination, but more of a network and covenant relationship through the relationship of the bishops and the missional council. Pastor Justin is ordained priest. He's ordained under Reach North America. And so he was ordained when I was consecrated as a bishop. He was ordained as a priest. And so his license is held in that jurisdiction. Um, we will be hosting an ordination service, the first, right now tentatively the first Sunday of Advent, because David Craig and Samuel and Elrath will be getting ordained as deacons in the church under Reach North America. So we believe in three offices, ordained offices: deacons, priests, and bishops. So they'll be ordained as deacons, and deacons traditionally are the bridge between the church and the world. They're and so I'm excited. We'll have some bishops come down. Bishop Page will come down. Bishop Jonathan will come down. Bishop Page will also bring some of his folks that are going to be getting ordained up here from Pennsylvania. So it's going to be a big ordination service where we'll host that. And it's going to be something where we get to celebrate that we are commissioning, we are ordaining. We're going to have some people that are going to be commissioned as licensed missionaries here. And so we're going to send them out. And as a church, we get to host that and see that and leverage our hospitality to see that kind of spread out. All right. So this is kind of where we fall out on that. Here's some key websites. I'll go ahead and I'll stop here and I'll go ahead and let me go to some of these websites actually. Let me see. All right, so like Reach North America page right here. You go to Reach North America, reachna.org. You can see more about it. You see kingdom collaboration, gospel multiplication. Like that's in our same thing that we have in our vision or our values as a church. You go about us, you'll see beliefs, you'll see our foundation, you'll see our principles, which is again all the stuff, leadership. You'll see Bishop Jonathan, you'll see me, that's the stock photo that I use for everything, and then Bishop Page is part of Reach North America as well. Reach North America, again, more of a mission society that is like a campaign that has different missionaries in it. Then you have the Missio Mosaic website, which is more about Mosaic. They're going to update their website because it's gotten bigger since they did this website. So it was very more New Orleans centered, but now it's all over the country. And so Bishop Page is going to be working on that, but you could go and you could click around on that. And here are the key websites for that. So, again, if you want to just Google Reach North America or Missio Mosaic, you could look up some other Kino Christiana websites. Communio Messianica is the Muslim background believers organization that we're connected with. Basileans is that group that's more monastic and they're dealing with economic reform. And then if you want to look up Archbishop Thomas Schirmacher's work, International Society of Human Rights and Religious Freedom, he just does some major work on a global level, often at the Vatican as an evangelical representative to the Pope. And so it's really interesting when he does that. He's kind of like the evangelical amongst the Roman Catholics to kind of give that perspective. And so, again, a lot of this is underground. A lot of it isn't going to be something you find on a website. And I believe that's kind of the way of the future. We're heading to an underground, quiet revival where things are going to happen, not necessarily in a grand fashion, but are going to happen person to person, behind the scenes. And so we get to be on the front end of that and be part of that, which really is going back to the first century. And so when we go and we have our fireside chat, some of the things that we'll talk about is a little bit more about Missio Mosaic. We'll talk a little bit more about what it means to be a network church. We'll talk about how that interacts with the Go initiative. Because again, Bishop Page has been here with Canal Street Church when they were forming Missio Mosaic, and so he could give us some good wisdom on that. And it's just a time to hear your questions. Again, this doesn't make us an Anglican church. All right. As a matter of fact, I would say that as a bishop, and our group is in the Anglican way in the sense of an Anglican tradition in the sense of St. Patrick, that tradition, less of the Roman Catholic, more missional and St. Patrick and what happened in there. And it's a little more loosey-goosey, a little more decentralized, a little more relational and less hierarchical. But I would say really we're more convergence, and we believe in converging the Word of God, the Spirit of God, and we believe in the two sacraments and that they do something, that it's a big deal. And so it's really taking the best of redemptive history and trying to bridge so we could directionalize it towards mission and enjoy the best of what God has for us. And so that allows us as a church to really be who the Lord's called us to be in any way, shape, or form. But we need to have relational communion with somebody. And I don't think it's denominationally. I think it's through a network, through covenant, through relationship. And historically, we've as a church have decided that, well, maybe not overtly, but we have when we left the denomination we're a part of and we didn't join another denomination because of other reasons. But this allows us to focus on mission. So MCC, this was a long explanation. Maybe you're more confused. Maybe this provides some clarity on it. But my door's open. You come in and we could have a conversation. And yeah, it'd be great if we could do that. So love you. I appreciate you guys. I look forward to our fireside chat on Sunday, August 4th, right after service with Bishop Page. And I'm looking forward to our Go initiative. So God bless, and give me a call. Stop in if you have any questions.